I'm Jansen Cox, and this is the South Carolina Cotton Museum, and this is a Carolina landmark. Bishopville, South Carolina is built right on the Indian Trail crossroads in the PD area. Indian trails crossed through here, and the Singleton family came here and opened a tavern here back in the early 1700s. And from there, and the tavern was run by a lady. And from there, at a later date, Jacques Bishop came to town. He was a doctor, and he set up his home here, and Bishopville was named for Jacques Bishop. Dr. Bishop did leave the community. We think he is buried in Sherall, South Carolina. Not exactly certain that's him. He won't talk to us, but the name took on the name of Bishopville. And it has been a major town here along the Lynch's River, one of the last of the great canoeing rivers in South Carolina. And this is also the headwaters of the Black River, also start right here in Bishopville. Back in 1992, a group of citizens came together to talk about how to increase Bishopville's involvement with tourism. I-20 was completed, an artery between I-26 and I-95 at that time, and now with I-77. And they talked about developing some type of museum here for the tourists to come visit. And the suggestion was put forward that we should do something unique. A general history museum exists everywhere. So the decision was made to do cotton, because this is what was growing here. This was a cotton county. It had been for years. So they started to build, and we used to have a storefront cotton museum on Main Street, and by 1998 we had outgrown that building, and Goldkiss Company donated this building over here for the Cotton Museum to move over. Much larger, better location, but also in the old industrial section of the community. And it's right on what used to be called Railroad Avenue. The Atlantic Coastline Railroad ran right in front of this building years ago. And the building was originally a mule stable run by a Jewish family, the Traub family. And mules were kept here and sold every year. Later on, it became a John Deere dealership, then an automobile dealership. You could get your Nash, Pontiac, and Packard worked on here. You could buy a brand new one here if you wanted to. Then later, part of the complex was turned over, and A&P grocery store was run there. On this side of the building, it became a sewing factory, a furniture store, and eventually a farm supply run by Goldkiss Company. So the building has had a wonderful growth on it, and in saving the building and preserving it, we have tried to save the architectural features of the interior of the building. As you walk through, you can see where the building has, we say, just growed, because there's places where you can actually see where outside walls were located as they added on to the building. Even to the extent there is a building within the building, which very few people get to see because it's all the way back in the storage area. But that used to be the paint booth for the John Deere dealership that was here. And even to this day, you can see the green and yellow paint from the John Deere spray guns. So the building has had a good life, and I hope we can keep it going for many years in the future. When you walk into the Cotton Museum, you come into a foyer. We do not have a lobby. As Colonel Springs, the Springs industry says, there's only one lobby, and that's in the Capitol. And your entrance away where you greet people has to be a foyer. And immediately to your right when you come in is a company store or gift shop, which is critical to our survival, but also gives you some neat things to purchase. But we also have a library and archives, and the library is used for research. Not every answer you want to know about cotton agriculture is found on the internet. Still, books are still one of the major sources for information. And then we have our business offices in the front area. Then a meeting room where we can hold up to 125 people in a meeting format. Formal, informal, we've had everything in there from weddings to banquets, health centers, health programs. We do our educational programs for all the school children there. And then you come back into the exhibit halls. And I think the amazing thing people learn very quickly is there's a lot of neat stuff here. And everything from the airplane that's hanging from the ceiling to the mule that's wagging his tail and wiggling his ears for you. There's a little bit of everything. And we don't take people on tours here. We don't do tours. We like the people to come in and be able to touch things, read for themselves, go at their own pace. We do have staff here, volunteers, that can answer almost any question you have concerning cotton. And if they don't have it, they can leave a note and one of the other staff members will research it and we will get back to them with the information. But you can go from the early days of the first cotton being planted in South Carolina in 1670 all the way up through the textile industry. And you can see the looms and so forth from that era. One of the most unique things and things we're very proud of is the first item you'll see coming into the museum is a 1935 hand-picked bale of cotton. And a lot of people do not realize that cotton will last for a long, long time. It will eventually decompose totally, but it is a very permanent type of fabric as such. Then we also have a model, full-size model of the Eli Whitney spiked gin. This was the first gin that Eli Whitney patented. Now, Eli Whitney did not invent the first cotton gin. That is one of the things a lot of people think Eli Whitney invented the first cotton gin. But he invented a spiked gin that would remove the seeds from the fiber of upland cotton. The first cotton grown in South Carolina by the settlers is called Sea Island cotton. And it's grown along the coast. And that takes a roller gin to remove the seeds from. We do not have a roller gin. I hope someday that we can locate one. We found one in Charleston, but couldn't borrow it. But as you go through, you'll see a whole collection of different plows. Also, one of the other interesting items we have, you will hear people talk about chopping and hoeing cotton. The hoe was always a very important tool in agriculture. It didn't matter in what area of agriculture you worked, but especially in cotton, because one of the things you had to do was to thin out the crop by chopping cotton. And that's where you chopped out the seed, the plants between the ones you wanted to keep. And we have in the collection on the exhibit a hoe that was specifically built by two young men here in Bishopville that's exactly 12 inches wide, and that's the distance they would hoe out the plants, is 12 inches. So instead of having to swing the hoe several times, they could go ahead and swing it only once, and they have 12-inch cut each time they do it. So we have these fascinating things. We have a grading table with different grades of cotton there to show you how cotton is graded. Even to this day, cotton is graded by sight. Not by machines, but by sight. And we try to make sure that you understand that. We also have the makings of room called the tenant house, which you can see how these tenant farmers, the quarters they lived in, the items they had. And most of the tenant houses were really one room. All the activities took place in it. The children lived and slept up in the garret or the attic. And the lighting was very dim in these houses. And there were plenty of cracks in the floor so you could drop things down through the floor at the dogs down below, especially if you didn't like what was for supper and you could sneak it away, but that was a different story. But going through the museum, and like I said, we have an airplane hanging from the ceiling, a Cessna ag wagon, and that was used for crop dusting here in Lee County. One of the other important things in history is today we have MSDS sheets. They come out with every product. The original roots for MSDS sheets started right here in Lee County by a crash of a crop dusting airplane back in the 60s. And the pilot was doused with a chemical, and there was no record of how to treat him for that exposure. And from that, in the court cases, we went into the MSDS sheets. So cotton in South Carolina, Lee County, has an effect on us all the way through. We view our role here as a South Carolina Cotton Museum of trying to educate and preserve the history of cotton in South Carolina. We do have items and objects from outside of South Carolina. Of course, it was used in cotton production. But one of the unusual things we run into, there is an organization called Cotton Incorporated. They're in Memphis, Tennessee, and they promote cotton and the production and the future of cotton and things that are happening with cotton today. And there's some very dramatic things happening with cotton today. And Cotton Incorporated deals with that. And they have a museum in Memphis. And we were intrigued to hear from them over a year or so ago that they view our collection and our programs here as a premier cotton museum in the nation. So we don't like to brag too much about ourselves, but it is nice to have someone speak about what we do here is outstanding and making a contribution to the future understanding and history of cotton. When we deal with groups, and especially the young people, educational programming, we ask every teacher to give us 2 hours of time with the students. And we do define specific educational programming. We do not take tours through the museum, but with them we do sit down, hands-on activities with cotton. The number one item we're trying to instill in the young people is that, one, cotton is still as important as it has ever been in our everyday life. And then the other thing that always amazes them is that humans and those students, we're the only ones that eat cotton. The boll weevil does not eat cotton, never did eat cotton. It just destroyed it before the cotton was formed. And this is one of the things that we try to make sure they understand. And from that, then all of a sudden, they're able to start understanding more what is read or printed on their food labels, where it says cottonseed oil, or even cotton fiber now and then will show up on their food packages. And this is important for them to know. Also, we try to let them get the concept, because we do some hands-on with them about how cottonseed and fiber was separated prior to the invention of the Whitney spike gin. And of course their first answer is, our fingers are hurting, this is work. And from that we get them to understand if they did that all day long, they would not have enough cotton fiber to even make their t-shirts, let alone card it, spin it, weave it, make it into fabric, and cut it. So it's important that they understand that machinery, be it on the farm, be it in the mill, is essential to our being able to enjoy cotton today. And of course, then we also introduce them to what's happening today, the new styrofoam that is being made from the burrs and debris from the cotton gin, which is held together with, of all things, mushrooms, that after it's shipped around, they can break it up and put it into the garden, and there's nothing going to the landfill. Also, we show them the newest of insulation that's being made from recycled blue jeans. And so we try and work with the students and also the other visitors along with this. We have a large video collection or DVD collection today that we can take time and show them what's out there as far as the visual. Instead of them just listening to me or one of our other staff members talk about it, we can also reinforce it with visual on the big screen TV. Here at the South Carolina Cotton Museum, my board of trustees and the staff here, we have taken it very seriously about what a museum's responsibilities are to a community, and that we must be doing outreach into the community. We need to be being sensitive to our community and contribute to the community. Not that we expect anything back from the community specific. Of course, we would like their support with a donation now and then. That's always very good in the banking end of the business. But with that in mind, we have worked with the community. We had a man from Tennessee came to Bishopville. He was a hero of Doc Blanchard, Felix Doc Blanchard, one of the greatest football players. And he came to Bishopville because Doc Blanchard was his hero. And he came one Sunday and he couldn't find anyone that knew anything about Doc Blanchard. He couldn't find anything that had the Blanchard name on it. He was devastated. He went back to Tennessee and he wrote a letter to the mayor and Chamber of Commerce saying, why haven't you done something with Doc Blanchard, this internationally known athlete and hero? And from that, he gave a modest amount of money for us to do something. Name a street for Doc, do something to recognize Doc Blanchard. And a committee was formed, and as committees do, they meet and they talk and so forth. And during the summer, I generally have some high school students that volunteer with me, and I mentor them. I always take them along with me if I attend these meetings and all. And that summer, I had 2 young men. And we attended the meetings, and I came back from one of those meetings and sat them down in my office, and I said, now, tell me, what did you think of this meeting and what they talked about? And they looked at me as serious as could be, and they said, we did not like a thing they were talking about. Said, we don't want to see a historic marker. We don't want them to have a painting on the side of a building of Doc Blanchard. Said, we have no statuary in this town. We would like to touch Doc. We would like to have a statue like other communities have, where we can go up and we can touch him, and we can touch the football in his hand. So we took that, we worked with it a little bit, the young men and myself, and the next time they had a meeting, we took that back to the meeting and pitched it. And the committee accepted it, and after some deep conversation with the family, the Blanchard family, which none of them live any longer here. The closest one is his sister in Sumter. Mary Elizabeth Blanchard agreed, Dr. Blanchard agreed with us that she would go along with a statue. Well, we weren't satisfied with one. We wanted a 3-figure statue, because we want one representing the youth of Doc as a boy growing up here playing marbles in the old library yard, what is now the old library yard. And we wanted a statue figure of Doc as a football player at the United States Military Academy at West Point. And then we wanted him as a fighter pilot, because after he graduated from the academy, he spent the rest of his career in the Army Air Force and then into the Air Force. And he had 86 combat missions over Vietnam. He held the speed record for the F-100 Sabre jet. So this was quite a man that grew up in our community, and there's still a lot of people here in Bishopville that know about Doc. So we went in and we did the fundraising and had the statue done by a South Carolina artist, and it's now down at the Flag Park. And one of the wonderful things from doing that is now, if any of the media ever picks up doing a story on Bishopville, generally they start out by saying, Bishopville, the home of Doc Blanchard. We finally have a signature with Bishopville. So we have the statue. It's down at the Flag Park on the corner, and we make sure from the museum that the flags are changed twice a year. The city supplies the flags. We monitor to make sure they're always in good condition. We will not have a bad flag flying. Also on Memorial Day, we do not forget our veterans. We have a breakfast here. The Chamber of Commerce helps us with that. And we feed every veteran, do a little ceremony on Memorial Day morning. In addition, we're expanding our building, our facilities now. We have acquired the building next door to us, and we're going to put a Veterans Museum in there. And the reason for that is we do not want to forget our heroes. And we've had so many veteran heroes in our community, starting from the American Revolutionary War up to the present time. We have a Medal of Honor recipient from this county, which you cannot find much about him. There's no statue for him. There's no marker for him. So we need to recognize him. These people need to understand it. And I always go back to those two young men sitting in my office. They want to be able to touch, feel something about our heroes. They don't necessarily want to just look at a plaque. They want to be able to communicate with them with a touch and feel. So we feel it's very important doing that. We also collect for Lee County and Bishopville archival materials. We've expanded our archives to include items concerning our history of our community. We have for over 12 years been a partner with the Library of Congress in doing the Veterans Oral History. If you are a veteran and if you have not participated in talking with us about your experiences in the service, we want to talk to you. You do not have to be a combat soldier, because for every combat soldier, there is 8 or more people behind you making it possible for you to fight on the lines. And your job is as important as anyone else's. Whether you were a mechanic on a flight line or whether you were just an ammunition passer back in the supply end, your role is important. If you're looking to find something on the South Carolina Cotton Museum, and we have this a lot, and that is we have a web page, www.sccotton.org, I think it is. And we also have an email address. People have no problem finding us on the computer. You just put South Carolina Cotton Museum in, you're going to find us. We also, especially for school children and all, we try to answer any questions they send us by email within 24 hours of receiving their inquiry. For others, we try and return our inquiries as fast as we can. Keep in mind, we have limited staff. We are downtown Bishopville, right off the interstate, I-20. Unfortunately, if you come up 341 or 527, you're going to come right up to our main street, and there are no signs directing you to the South Carolina Cotton Museum. They did a streetscape, but did not design an area to put the signs back up. So if you come from that area, you're going to have to ask for directions, or just turn right. We're just 1 block away. So we're in easy proximity, a nice stop, clean restrooms, and starting at 7:30 in the morning, we have a cup of coffee. You can come have a cup of coffee with us and a cookie. So we invite you to come see us.